Jesus, India, and the Turin Shroud. The Shroud of Turin, long revered as the possible burial cloth of Jesus Christ, continues to fascinate historians and believers. DNA analysis of samples collected in 1978 revealed not only human DNA, but also traces of plants and animals, reflecting centuries of contact. Remarkably, in early 2026, the University of Padova found that 38.7% of the human DNA traces to Indian lineages. How did a cloth associated with ancient Judea carry traces of India? Scholars suggest several possibilities, centuries of handling by pilgrims, clergy and scientists. But 38.7 Indian DNA is notably high. So historical trade networks linking the Mediterranean, Egypt and South Asia should be considered. For example, if the shroud does date back nearly 2,000 years, then we must acknowledge that Roman merchants routinely imported Indian spices, cotton, gemstones and luxury goods. Northwestern and southern coastal regions of India were known in antiquity for their fine cloth and textiles. Adding intrigue, a controversial theory proposes that during Jesus' missing years, ages 12 to 30, he may have travelled to India, overland through Central Asia, or by sea via Egypt and then on to India, or even via the Persian Gulf. I'm not suggesting that Jesus' own body could have contributed any Indian human DNA to the shroud. That would not be possible. Rather, the point is that such a connection helps illustrate the extent of India's cultural and economic influence during that period. Anyway, some theorize that Jesus entered the Himalayas to associate with spiritual people. Evidence mainly comes from Nicholas Notovich, who claimed to see a Tibetan manuscript of the Hemis Monastery in Ladakh, Kashmir, the life of Saint Issa. It describes Jesus, called Issa, studying with Hindu and Buddhist teachers there. However, investigators, including James Archibald Douglas and Max Muller, found no trace of the manuscript, and the monastery denied all knowledge of it. But others, such as Swami Abhinanda, reported seeing similar manuscripts there, and Nicholas Roerich claimed to hear related stories during his Himalayan travels. Mainstream historians, however, generally consider all these accounts to be fabrications. Supporters point to the cosmopolitan Kushan Empire as a plausible context for spiritually motivated journeys. After all, the empire was typically visited for trade, diplomacy, and sometimes even spiritual pursuits relating to Mahayana Buddhist, Hindu, and Zoroastrian traditions. Though exceptional, travel from Judea to India by sea could take 2 to 4 months. Challenging, but feasible. In medieval Christian folklore, Joseph of Arimathea is usually depicted as a wealthy merchant who travelled extensively. Building on this legend, some modern theorists have speculated that young Jesus may have accompanied him on such journeys, perhaps as far as Western India. Such a journey by land would have taken 6 to 8 months. But remember, in the Gospels, Jesus disappeared for 18 years. As debates over the shroud's authenticity continued, radiocarbon dated by 3 universities in 1988 firmly concluded a medieval origin. A forgery made 1,300 years after Jesus. Many believers were very disappointed. Conventional accounts place the first public knowledge of the shroud in 14th century France, where it was reportedly presented to the French knight Geoffroy de Charny, to the dean of the Collegiate Church at Lithre. Yet this account as an origin story becomes weaker in the light of the Indian DNA. At that time, France did very little trade with that region. This challenges the long-standing assumption that the shroud is a forgery which never left the borders of France or Italy. We are invited to look further back. One frequently discussed possibility is its connections to the events of 1204, when Crusaders sacked Constantinople. In the chaos of that episode, countless relics were looted and dispersed across Europe. Some have speculated that the shroud may be the same cloth known as the Mandylion, once kept in the Byzantine capital. Mandylion means cloth with sacred image. They theorize that it was carefully folded so mainly only Jesus' face was visible. While this is speculative, it is compelling. A century before that, Constantinople stood as a major hub in long-distance trade networks, including the exchange of Indian textiles and other goods. So could the shroud or mandelion have been forged there then? Well, it is said that the mandelion was kept in Edessa in modern Turkey before being transferred to Constantinople in 944. So we go further back still. At that time, Edessa had no direct trade links with India, so the theory that the shroud was forged in that city is weak. At this point, I must add that between 2022 and 2024, studies using modern wide-angle X-ray scattering concluded that the Turin Shroud's fibres are fully compatible with the period of Jesus. Whoa. Now, let's be honest, it's a huge stretch, but if that was the Shroud of Jesus rather than someone else from the same period, some faithful believers conclude that at some point Joseph of Arimathea must have passed it on to early Christians for safekeeping. The shroud was then sent to Edessa to heal Abgar V, spread Christianity, and hide it from the Romans. The cloth was folded as described and carefully stored, then becoming known as the mandelion. During one of Edessa's periods of danger, the mandelion shroud was hidden in the city walls. Then, much later, it was rediscovered and revered in the 6th century. It stayed in the city until it was taken to the powerful Christian stronghold, Constantinople. The rest, we know. Maybe. Just maybe. Whether it wrapped the body of Jesus Christ or not, the Shroud of Turin remains a highly fascinating piece of human history. My bets are that the cloth was made in India and exported, but one could argue the shroud could also play a major part in unravelling the enduring mystery of Jesus' early life and travels, perhaps including India.